driven by economic needs. Pops will tend to move from places with a low standard of living to places with a high standard of living if they think that they can pick up a job that will improve their material conditions. Discrimination plays a part as well in migration, as Pops are obviously not keen to move from places where they are enjoying full citizen rights to a place where they would become second-class citizens. Mass migrations happen as a result of widespread turmoil in a culture, which can be because that culture is being heavily discriminated against in the places they currently live, or especially if they're suffering from poor economic conditions and widespread starvation. During a mass migration, the culture will select a place in the world where they believe that they can make a new life for themselves. And large numbers of Pops of that culture will begin moving to that place and the surrounding areas, such as the widespread migration of Europeans to the New World as a result of economic hardship, poor harvests, and political repression. Countries can determine how they want to interact with the migration system by setting a migration policy, perhaps looking to attract skilled workers for their factories, or wanting to maintain political control by minimizing all forms of migration, both internal and external.
And so we have reached the end of yet another monthly update video, but we'll be back with more from our devs in a month. Until then, follow us on social media and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date with everything Victoria 3.
So if you haven't heard the recent news, Princess Mako, the niece of Emperor Naruhito, the current reigning emperor of Japan, has decided to marry someone outside of royalty, thus causing her to lose her own royal status. In fact, this news is actually several years old by this point. but right now is just resurfacing after her and her fiancé finally have gone forward and at last gotten married. This, of course, under the current laws and rules of the Japanese imperial household, means that she is now just considered a simple commoner. And from this, we see the rise of two major debates that have erupted regarding this news. One debate outside of Japan, which has been more critical towards the whole idea of the Japanese monarchy, and a debate inside of Japan surrounding the issue of the man she was set to marry, with many being very suspicious of him and his family's past controversies, leading to many believing him to be unfit to marry her. And although this debate is currently a very sensitive one, it is not the one I'm going to talk about here, but rather a larger debate that has been going on for some years regarding the imperial laws of succession and the crisis facing the imperial family. Now, normally, my videos are all about samurai and samurai history, but for this video I'm going to step outside of that zone and talk about these issues, because right now I feel more than ever is a significant time to shed some light on both of these debates, while also helping you better understand the historical role and cultural importance of the Emperor of Japan. But first and foremost, to state the obvious, I'm not Japanese. So, with that said, I'm going to look to cover this topic objectively. This is not some piece of pro-Japanese imperial propaganda, but rather a dive into why the Japanese emperor is such a historically and culturally significant figure, along with some of the important issues currently facing the imperial family in modern day. Yet, I should also add that, of course, this topic is very complicated and at times confusing. I have tried my best to get a grip on some of the finer details, but please, if I make any mistakes, I welcome you to correct me in the comments. So, on that note, let's dive in by first discussing a bit about the history of the Japanese emperor, before then going off to talk about the current controversies. Like most prominent civilizations that have arisen over thousands of years, ancient Japan started out with a form of despotic rule, with the first monarch believed to be Jimmu, a legendary and perhaps even mythological figure who began his reign in 660 BC and is said to have been descended from Amaterasu, the Shinto goddess of the sun. Although his actual existence is largely debated by historians today, Jimmu is also considered to be the first emperor of Japan. Theoretically, this makes the Japanese royal family the oldest surviving monarchy in the world. Because Jimmu was the first, all of his offspring were said to carry the blood of a deity, being all descended from Amaterasu. This is why the Japanese equivalent to the word emperor, Tenno, can roughly be translated to mean heavenly sovereign. This belief has existed for the majority of Japan's existence, that the emperor was godly, and thus was sort of seen as the head of the Shinto faith, creating a figure that is not only as respected as a monarch, but also as worshipped as, say, a pope. This has always carried with the imperial family, as unlike other monarchies across the world, the lineage of the Japanese emperor has always remained within the same overall family, although it has not always been carried father to son, and instead has from time to time been succeeded through different branches of the family, including brothers, cousins, and nephews. Either way, the figure who occupies the chrysanthemum throne, the seat named after the imperial insignia, has always remained within the same unbroken bloodline that is believed to be descended from Emperor Jimmu. Now, originally, for centuries the emperor and his imperial court ruled Japan. That is until 1185, whereby the end of the extremely significant conflict known as the Genpei War, the samurai took control of the nation and established a form of military government where a shogun, the highest military leader in the land, yet still below the emperor, held essentially more actual power than the emperor. The shogun's government was known as the bakufu, or shogunate. The emperor was still allowed to rule from the imperial capital, Kyoto, but in all actuality he was just a figurehead while the samurai ran the country. Now, the samurai were still theoretically loyal to the emperor, and we can see times when samurai went above and beyond the call of duty in the name of the emperor. But there were also times when emperors tried to rise up and re-establish themselves as the real head of the government, and there were times where they actually briefly succeeded. Yet, in the end, the samurai would dominate Japan for nearly 7 centuries, finally coming to fall in 1868, when the final samurai government, the Tokugawa shogunate, was toppled, restoring the emperor to ultimate power. This would usher in the age of Imperial Japan, when the country rapidly modernized and set out for new territorial ambitions across Asia. At the time, the Japanese were poised to emulate European empires. Ruled by a monarchy and with a lust for imperial expansion, Japan even largely westernized in its appearance as to fit in with the styles of Europe. Their aggressive military expansion would finally bring us into the years of the Second World War, where Japan would at last be defeated by the Allies. In the aftermath, the United States was largely responsible for the reshaping of Japanese politics, and was desperate to find a way to declaw the radical militarism that had become deep-rooted in Japan after centuries of samurai rule. And the path for the US was unclear regarding how to handle the issue of the Japanese emperor. The Allies had said that Japan, like Germany, would be forced to suffer an unconditional surrender, yet Japan still held firm to the one condition, that no matter what, there would be no abolition of the emperor or the imperial family. There is plenty of debate still raging to this day regarding how much actual involvement Emperor Hirohito had in pushing Japan into World War II, but in the end, the US realized how important the figure of the emperor was to the Japanese, and thus allowed him to keep his ceremonial position, albeit now he was truly just relegated to being a figurehead once again. And he had to also announce to the Japanese people that he was not actually a deity. We also see by 1947, along with the creation of Japan's new constitution, there would also be a reshaping of the imperial laws of succession. These had followed the Imperial House Law of 1889, which had sought to cut down on the number of possible claimants to the imperial throne, while also helping ensure that only males would ascend to the throne, something that was already pretty much the norm. However, the new 1947 Imperial Household Law can arguably be seen as far more drastic, as it eliminated all other branches of the imperial family other than those who were part of Emperor Hirohito's line and siblings. And although it probably was not recognized at the time, this has caused a number of modern-day problems, including marriages, offspring, and actual succession. Now, I'm going to try to discuss this in a way that is not too overly confusing, so I feel we should start at the top. One of the main issues facing the imperial family today has to do with how it approaches its female members. Under Japanese laws of succession, only males can ascend to the chrysanthemum throne. But additionally, males are also allowed to marry outside of the imperial family, and thus bring in a wife to the imperial family. However, on the flip side of that, daughters within the imperial family have to marry relatives within their extended family in order to stay within the imperial household. Yet, if they marry outside of the family, they officially lose their status as royalty. Now, being that there are so many daughters within the current imperial family and extended family, they really have no choice other than to remain single their whole life or marry an outsider and lose their royal status. Thus is the story of Princess Mako, who recently went forward with marrying an outsider, an issue that has caused some furious debates in Japan. Once again, most of the concern for this is regarding a controversy surrounding the family of her new husband, but it also brings up the old debate of the dwindling imperial line in Japan, as yet another princess is leaving the imperial family. It raises the topic yet again of should Japan pass succession reform and aims to help female members retain their royal status so that their offspring would inherit it as well. These also tie in with other problems regarding Japan's issue with gender equality, but I'm not going to get into that subject here. Now, in the past, these imperial succession issues have arose with many calling for reform, while others have pushed back on the idea entirely. And back on the topic of Princess Mako in particular, the issue of her becoming a commoner in order to marry has also sparked some debate abroad, where some who see this as an injustice chalk it up to just another reason why the world does not need monarchies anymore, and that royal families like that in Japan should simply be dissolved entirely. But I should mention that those foreigners who believe that often don't understand the historical and cultural significance of the Japanese emperor in the first place as it is. The funny thing about this is that it would not have been much of an issue at all when more of the branches of the imperial family were still considered legitimate and not null and void, following the Imperial Household Law of 1947, which eliminated all other branches. But now, because there are so many daughters within the current imperial family, and realistically, they can't produce proper male offspring due to their inability to stay within the royal family if they were to marry outside of it, it creates a massive problem for how the family will continue on. As of right now, the imperial line is secured for at least another generation or so. The current emperor is Naruhito, who succeeded his father Akihito in 2019 when he retired from the throne. But being that Naruhito only has one child, and that she is a daughter, succession will likely pass to his brother, Fumihito, before then continuing on to his only son, the young prince Hisahito. If nothing were to change, Hisahito will need to have sons, and preferably plenty of them, if the imperial Japanese family is to continue. Otherwise, drastic reform will be needed to ensure that the imperial line does not die out. However, I strongly believe we will not get to that point. Being that the emperor is such an important part of Japan, in both its history, culture, and even current identity, I don't ever see the nation simply allowing the imperial line to wither on the vine. If anything, as a last resort, I do feel drastic reform would come if absolutely needed. It is just not really known in what form these reforms would come in. In fact, a recent poll in Japan indicated that over 80% of Japanese citizens said they would readily accept perhaps a female ascending to the throne, or even a male who is descended from just a former female member of the imperial family. With that type of acceptance, I am one to believe that the imperial line will remain safe for some time. But with that said, the real core of what I wanted to talk about here in this video is really why the Japanese emperor is so significant, and why even I, as a foreigner, believes with its historical and cultural weight, it should go on. The real meat of it is the fact that it really is the longest running royal bloodline in the world, and carries with it a title that, as I mentioned earlier, has been as respected as a monarch and even as worshipped as, say, a pope. To this day, Japan even continues to name its eras after the posthumous names of its emperors, with the current Reiwa era having just started in 2019, with the ascension of Emperor Naruhito. The status of the emperor is so ingrained into the heart and soul of Japan that it is hard, even as a foreigner, to not recognize its great importance. And that is really what I'm trying to get across. Once again, I want to make it abundantly clear that this is a complicated subject, and if you find any mistakes I may have made in covering it, please feel free to correct me. But with that said, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell if you enjoyed this video and found it to be most interesting.
Motherfucking faggot.
Can you fuckers stop
fucking targeting me? There are literally 5 other bitches in this fucking match.
Why would you be toxic towards someone running away from you in a dead game?
Not everybody who watches you thinks you are.
Fuck you and your whole crew, Afro. Nigga, slap shit at you and take your shoes, bitch. What a bunch of fucking retards that play this game, man.
If you don't like us, then go play casual. We're in ranked for a reason.
Man, why you play the fucking game if you don't want to play the fucking game?
What's the matter with you?
So what are you talking about?
People are trying to play the game to have fun.
Yeah, we're not doing anything, man. What the fuck's your problem?
Swear to God, I hope you die. Man, you better not ever hope I find out what your gay ass is.
Sorry. Bro, you're projecting like ain't nobody talking about gay shit and you bringing up gay shit like it sounds like you trying to tell me something.
I hope you get in a car crash and die, nigga. You a fuck boy, nigga.
Bro, you're kind of sad.
Look at this gay ass fucking kid, bro. I seriously hope that he
I
gets
like
hit by a car, bro.
I like how nobody's talking about gay shit.
I literally want him to get hit by a car so fucking much.
Talking about gay shit, calling people faggots.
No one's gonna love you because you're a fucking faggot.
So once again with the gay shit, when nobody's talking about gay shit, and you're sitting here projecting on us, dude, it's 2020. Yeah, I mean, it's been over, I mean, what, like, they accepted it in 2018. What, they legalized gay marriage in, like, what, 2017, 2016?
You literally like sucking men's penises.
Ain't nobody talking about sucking penises. Once again, with the projection on the gay shit.
I've never seen something get that furious, bro. I've never seen someone of that rate.
You thought this shit would be funny?
Oh, I'm still here. Are you playing with us, bro?
Fuck you and your mama, bitch.
Shut up, bro!
Go eat a dick!
Suck my whole fucking cock, bitch!
Swear to God, I hope you die. Man, you better not ever hope I find out what you're getting.
I'll kiss you. I'll suck your dick, bitch.
Your ass, okay?
Hey, what's up guys, it's Chalonqua here once again, best Dota 2 player the world's ever fucking seen, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys why Banana Slam Jamma is a fucking dog shit stained motherfucker. He paid money for someone to boost his account, okay? More like Banana Shit Slam Jamma, okay? So, you know, in this video I'm going to be showing you guys a replay of a game where I fucking dumpstered this fucking dipshit, this fucking Tiny, okay? And this is after I carried this fucking shit stain to victory against Arteezy, another account buying piece of shit, okay? So look at this fucking idiot, you guys. This is the oldest fucking trick in the fucking book, okay? Tossing somebody onto a techies who's standing right on top of his fucking mines, okay? But this fucking dog shit, banana shit stain, slam dog shit Jamma, just a fucking garbage fucking player, sitting here like a fucking idiot with his thumb up his fucking asshole, and he's just fucking dead, you guys. And I want to show you guys his perspective of that little play, okay?
I don't know where he laid his mines, is the issue. I guess Tiny just abandoned.
So pause really quick, you guys. Now, as you can see, Techies placed a mine, and he has vision of the mine. He can also hear it, so now he should know exactly where the fucking mines are, because this dog shit fucking techies doesn't know how to fucking hide himself when he's placing fucking mines, okay? But what does this fucking dipshit do after seeing the mines being placed and a tiny teeping into the lane? He just sits there like a fucking idiot with his thumb up his fucking asshole, and he just gets fucking shit fucked back to the fucking Stone Age. He's so shit.
I'm fucking dead on it. Yeah, okay. There were 3 or 4 units near me. That's bullshit. That is bullshit. I'm actually pissed. I knew what they were trying to do.
Maybe this fucking dipshit should read the fucking patch notes and learn how to play the fucking game before he starts making assumptions about fucking Tiny's toss because he's fucking dog shit and he never played Heroes of fucking New Earth and he doesn't know what the fuck Pebbles does. So maybe this fucking shit-stained motherfucker should learn how to play the fucking game before making excuses for himself. He's so shit.
Next to K, I'm gonna go on him. Just see what happens. Okay, he's stream sniping me.
This fucking dog shit, fucking shit-stained motherfucker says he's gonna go on me next to K, and then 10 seconds after saying that, my character backs off, so he assumes that I'm stream sniping him, even though Twitch has a built-in 30-second delay, so it wouldn't have even been possible for me to hear him. He's so shit. Just keep on making excuses for yourself, you fucking dog shit, fucking shit-stained, fucking absolute fucking dog shit, feces-stained piece of shit, straight from Gabe Newell's fucking asshole. He's so shit. And really, he just proceeded to feed non-stop the entire fucking game. Okay, I don't know how this fucking shit stain got to 6k MMR, but I suspect there are some, you know, black market trades going down, because this fucking BSJ figure is just fucking dog shit, okay? As you can see, he just non-stop feeds, okay, blames his entire team, the entire fucking game. When he loses, he accuses people of stream sniping. Okay, this kid is...
Ladies and gentlemen, the Republican nominee for president and the Democratic nominee for president,
Banana Slam Jamma.
Thank you and good evening. The last presidential debate could have been rated as MA, mature audiences, per TV parental guidelines. Knowing that educators assign viewing the presidential debates as students' homework, do you feel you're modeling appropriate and positive behavior for today's youth?
Fuck you! Seriously, what are we in fucking middle school or some shit? I said the F word too many times, I guess. I'll be showing you guys why Banana Slam Jamma is a fucking dog shit, shit-stained motherfucker. He paid money for someone to boost his account, okay? More like Banana Shit Slam Jamma, okay? So, you know, in this video, I'm gonna be showing you guys a replay of a game where I fucking dumpstered this fucking dipshit as fucking Tiny.
Really? We want to remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just wasting time. Was he mistaken, or was his mistake simply telling the truth?
Woo! You're literally the worst player I've actually ever fucking seen, dude. I actually don't even know what he's saying. I'm so good at this game. Fucking retard.
At this point, I played with Banana Shit Stain Slam Dog Shit Jam multiple times, and it never fails to amaze me just how fucking dog shit this kid is, alright? I'm almost 100% positive that this fucking shit-stained motherfucker is purchasing MMR boosts off camera, and then he goes to stream with a high MMR, because this fucking dog shit fucking player is just the biggest steaming pile of shit I've ever fucking seen.
Okay. What I'll do for you guys, just because I'm so amazing, you guys can thank me later, is I'll do the 5 games on my main, and then I will repeat Slark and one other on my Smurf, because I'm just so nice. I didn't rig the election. You guys fucking voted 50-50. What do you mean I chose the result? I literally decided my result based on what you guys voted. You guys voted for main, but it was 52%.
Some big news here, Megan. Huge news. actually. The AP now projecting that
Challenge clock.
has won the state of Pennsylvania.
That is the race, frankly. There is no path forward for him.
Banana shit stain slam dog shit jam.
If this, we've just seen that Pennsylvania has been called by AP. I think for me, this is one of the most stunning results of the night. We had seen her up comfortably 5 to 6 points. When we go through the data and we look at where he sort of held up, it was in some of the suburban counties, huge showing in the western part of the state.
God, I love Dota 2, don't you know?
The missile knows where it is at all times. It knows this because it knows where it isn't. By subtracting where it is from where it isn't, or where it isn't from where it is, whichever is greater, it obtains a difference or deviation. The guidance subsystem uses deviations to generate corrective commands to drive the missile from a position where it is to a position where it isn't, and arriving at a position where it wasn't, it now is. Consequently, the position where it is now the position that it wasn't, and it follows that the position that it was is now the position that it isn't. In the event that the position that it is in is not the position that it wasn't, the system has acquired a variation. The variation being the difference between where the missile is and where it wasn't. If variation is considered to be a significant factor, it too may be corrected by the GEA. However, the missile must also know where it was. The missile guidance computer scenario works as follows. Because a variation has modified some of the information the missile has obtained, it is not sure just where it is. However, it is sure where it isn't, within reason, and it knows where it was. It now subtracts where it should be from where it wasn't, or vice versa. And by differentiating this from the algebraic sum of where it shouldn't be and where it was, it is able to obtain the deviation and its variation, which is called error.
Hey there, my name is Provis, and welcome back to more Rebel Inc. Escalation Custom Scenarios. Today we're going to try out a scenario called Garrison Heaven. By no one in particular. That's fun. The insurgents are attacking once again, as they often do. However, all the other governors went on vacation, leaving only the garrison commander left to fend them off. How incredibly irresponsible. In this scenario, garrisons must be used to solve problems as you have dramatically fewer soldiers. That's an interesting idea. First off, it looks like not all of the governors went on vacation. We do still have the civil servants, but let's be honest, he's effectively useless since he doesn't do anything. So, fewer soldiers, lots of garrisons, right? Am I understanding how that's going to work? Let's find out for sure. So we're playing as, apparently, Colossal Garrison is the name of the operation. I don't even have a choice in that. Go for my standard positioning as far as the HQ. I do see some specialist depots, and sure enough, we have quite a few forts already placed down. What is this? The Fanatical Outpost. Prevent insurgents from fleeing. Useful when we go chasing after insurgents and try to kill them with the help of garrisons, right? Probably. What's this? Garrison initiatives, most advanced initiatives are not available. Oh, good. Just hamper me even further. Why not? Yeah, that sounds fine. I see a coalition soldier, but not much else. And then we have Garrisons 1, authorized construction of garrisons in zones with intel. So just standard garrisons, just a little bit early then. Got it. All right, fine. Let's go for the district representatives. Let's go for effective procurement. Let's go for services. This is all different. Hang on. Water supplies, supply distribution, and garrison schools. So, they are the regular initiatives, but they be reskinned so that people have to come to the fort. Bring your children to the forts! They shall learn many things! Sure, why not? Okay, that's fine. Let's go for garrison scouts. That does get me some extra intel on zones over time. If we're going to have less units, getting garrisons is going to be very important, but also getting roads for fast transportation is probably going to be very key for me. So let's go ahead and get some infrastructure discussion. Hang on, there's something new. Garrison radio. So it's just regular radio and electricity. I don't know why some of this has been reskinned, since it appears to be the exact same thing. Like that's one of those customizations that's not really custom, and you just kind of have to ask why. And I don't know the answer to that one. Let's go ahead and get roads and highways, since that should cover most of the area around these mountains, which is where I'm ultimately hoping to get these guys contained. We have intel in quite a few locations. I do have 2 different specialist depots, well that's helpful. Won't be surprised if there's a third one somewhere. We're going to go for the outreach office so we can roll out these initiatives, especially the roads, a little bit faster. And we should probably go ahead and pick up at least corruption level 1, just so we can start slowly chipping away at that. Yeah, starting to get some infrastructure here. What's this? Floods devastate this area. Oh, okay. Well, I guess we're going to go ahead and do extensive aid. Amazingly, did not get the significant boost in corruption, but that does turn into just free support across the entire zone. So, I mean, that's fine. PR and media office wouldn't be a bad idea. I'm holding on to some cash just because I expect that we're going to need to get some soldiers soon. But we'll see. I guess we could just start placing down garrisons. I just feel like you want to place garrisons down a little bit later, because they will tell you where the enemies are going to be, right? Garrisons automatically are prioritized wherever the insurgents are actually located. So that just makes more sense to me. What's this, by the way? Camp knowledge. Scientifically, insurgent camps are the opposite of garrisons. Oh, that makes sense. We can use this knowledge to logically work out where the camps are in comparison. Unlock informants. So does that just tells me where the camps are? I mean, that's useful. I've got intel on the full zone already, and I see no sign of insurgents at all. This is very delayed. Very delayed indeed. All right, more initiatives then. How about some dirt roads and some supplies? There we go. What do you want? Electricity. Everyone wants electricity. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a foundational resource for most of civilization these days. I guess that's fair. We'll go ahead and pick that one up. Why not? Still no sign of insurgents for the record. There they are. Okay, good. Finally, let's go ahead and pick up some coalition soldiers and see what we can do. I want to grab some of these specialist depots as quick as we can. Grab those now. So, wait, do we not have any national soldiers? If we don't have national soldiers, that's a problem. Right. Well, let's go ahead and pick up garrisons. Ah, we do have national soldiers. Okay. Garrisons 2, hire additional logistical teams to expedite the placements. We just get to place down more. Only good if you have enough income to support that. Tripwires. In the incredibly unfortunate event we lose a garrison, we make sure we take insurgents with it, which is conflicting with something else, indestructible garrisons. Pure diamond. Really? Oh, wow. Pure diamond walls, ensuring insurgents can't destroy them no matter what. Can we build one of these and then just sell it? Just chip away at it for a little bit? I think that would supply our nation with funds for a long, long time. Just saying. Nah, whatever. Garrison up over here. Odd spot for one, but all right. We'll go ahead and pick it up. I'm going to probably deploy the remote specialist in particular. I see that as being the most helpful, but the urban a little bit less so. Urban I could probably afford to get rid of, but remote, yeah, that could be very important for me. I'm gonna get National Soldiers Training since it seems like we can't have very many, and then I'm gonna go ahead and grab water supplies. My corruption's a bit high considering. Hello, found some enemies. Okay, so we're gonna get this depot real quick. And then we're going to go ahead and reject it to get some money, because we just don't need it. Then we're going to pop over here, and with the power of garrisons, hopefully destroy these fools. What else do we have over here? National travel, logistics, and armed soldiers, blah, blah, blah. And then interpreters and guides. Yeah, if we're only going to get 2 units, this is actually going to be pretty tricky. No doubt about it. Increase support level. This is universal justice. I mean, it's probably worth getting. It's usually really good. We need more support level. It seems a little bit low. At the end of the day, I mean, we're fine, because we did have such an incredible delay in the enemies spawning, but yeah. So there's probably a camp over here. I'm going to wish that I had airstrikes, and I can control the airstrikes. Fascinating. Okay. That works all right for me. We are not going to win this fight unless we get some more garrisons, huh? Right. Yeah, that's admittedly a bit of a problem. What do people want? Still want electricity, huh? And also radio. Right. Well, I guess we could pick this up. What does this do? Garrison dropping. Increase the strength of airstrikes unlocks government takeover? Huh? Okay, so we drop garrisons down. That doesn't make any sense. Unlock government takeover. What does that do? I've got no clue. We could use the remote special.
Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Bavarian, and this is of course Victoria 3's Dev Diary number 19. Today we have relations and infamy and interests. All those of these 3 topics are in this Dev Diary, and there are 2 things that I would like to point out before we jump into this. The first one is, please pay attention when it comes to this Dev Diary. Please think about it. Please leave a comment in the comment section and leave a comment in the Paradox forum thread. The link is of course in the description if you feel so inclined, because all of these mechanics that you're going to be seeing here today are absolutely pivotal for everything. Basically everything going on in diplomacy in this game. Why is that so? Well, these are all the fundamental building pieces of diplomacy. Everything that you do in diplomacy will be sort of circling around these, will have an impact on them and vice versa. So definitely make sure that you like this system, and if you do like it, then say so. If you don't like it, then say so as well. Very, very important. Victoria 3 is a system, or rather is a game that has seen many changes based on user feedback, and I think it is very important that that continues, because that will make the best game for all of us. Now, number 2 of what I want to mention is that infamy is here. Yes, infamy is here, and I didn't think so myself. Originally, of course, we were talking about threat. We sort of hypothesized on this channel as well, at least to a very limited degree, as limited as we could with what we knew about it. And threat didn't make it into the game. They also approached this in the Dev Diary, but I do want to point that out. We are looking now at a bit of a hybrid system where infamy comes in from Victoria 2, is significantly changed, significantly altered, and then does something similar to what, infamy in Victoria 2 did. Keep an eye out on that, primarily because it is now a new mechanic. So, let's jump into this. Let's, inspect what Victoria 3 does when it comes to diplomacy. This one is going to be a little broad, as we want to go through the fundamental mechanics of diplomacy before moving on. Right, let's start with relations. This is a value on a scale between -100 and +100 that determines the overall diplomatic standing between 2 countries, similar to, of course, how other games that do that as well. The key difference between relations here and in those games is that in Victoria 3 relations are bilateral, meaning that while in your Europa Universalis France can have a relation of -100 with Prussia, while Prussia has a relation of +100, in Victoria 3 these 2 countries will always have the same relation score towards each other. So this is different from all the other games, except from the Victoria series. Remind me, maybe EU3 does it, maybe, I don't think Hearts of Iron does it. I don't want to bet on that though. Hearts of Iron 2 and Hearts of Iron 3 may have had this as well, but in Victoria 2 you also had a relation that said, hey, +200, and that exists between these countries bilaterally. So this isn't necessarily new, but it is a good step in my opinion that they kept this. And there are 2 reasons for this. Let's just jump in what they have to say. I want to give that to you as well. There's a few reasons for this change, such as making it more clear exactly where 2 countries stand with each other, but the most important one is that we want relations to be a mechanic with significance and mechanical effects, not just for AI countries, but also for the player, and even in multiplayer. Now, why is this relevant? Fundamentally,
when you play these games, when you play EU4, when you play CK3, in CK3 you may have a very positive opinion of somebody else, and that person may have a very negative opinion of you. What this leads to is ultimately that the AI looks at you and says, oh, this guy likes me, they're not gonna attack me, right? And then they do. Because you're the player. You are completely unpredictable in these games because your opinion doesn't actually mean anything. In Stellaris, if I'm not mistaken here, please correct me if I am, but in Stellaris, for example, hey, if you are playing in multiplayer, it just reads, yeah, we don't know how the player will react to this because it's a player. We have no idea what's going on. And one of the biggest difficulties here is that the AI can't really tell what the player is going to do based on the opinion, because, again, opinion doesn't mean anything. Now, AI versus AI, opinion means everything. What your opinion of somebody is makes it so that that AI will say, okay, you are a threat and you are not a threat, and I'm a threat to you, for example, right? In Victoria 3, this will be different, because in Victoria 3, you as the player will also be bound by how this bilateral relationship is actually designed, and I think this is a good step. I think this is very, very positive. I do want to point out that it appears that opinion and relations are now one and the same. They have been merged, they have been altered, but they are no longer separate. If you didn't play Victoria 2, then this might not say anything for you, but basically in Victoria 2, you had something called opinions, and opinions gave you statuses such as cordial, friendly, in-sphere, neutral, opposed, that sort of stuff. And these were fundamentally not important for your genuine relationship to a nation. They only existed when it comes to how grand powers are influencing a smaller power. So for example, Austria would have Bavaria in its sphere, and Prussia might be friendly. Does that mean anything? No. Prussia could declare war against Bavaria at any point, it doesn't matter at all. And then next to this opinion, you also had relations, which were the genuine bilateral relations that countries had. So for example, if you had an opinion over +100 in Victoria 2, you couldn't justify a war goal. If you had an opinion of anything, you can still declare war once you have a war goal, but you can't justify one, right? And this is fundamental, because basically these two systems were disjointed, they were completely disconnected. One only did great power stuff and the other did genuine diplomacy stuff, and now this is sort of merged together. You will see this here in a second, because based on your relationship level, which goes from -100 to +100, you can get certain levels: warm, amiable, cordial, neutral, poor, cold, and hostile. You can already see right here that they evidently merged these systems and made it so that, yes, of course, they are coherent with one another. They are standing not in opposition, but rather in complete understanding. If you have a positive relationship with somebody, then their opinion will be highly positive of you. We can see this reflected here. Great Britain feels towards us hostile, then the USA are cordial, Austria is cordial, the rest is cold or neutral. And you can also see that the one with the golden frame here are great powers, whereas the ones with a silver frame are only major powers. For example, the East India Company, which would likely be a great power, but can't be, because as we learned last Dev Diary, you need to be independent to actually be a great power. So basically, they merged these two things, how great powers view you, what's going on, and put these all into relations. I personally find this to be very, very positive. The way it was in Victoria 2 was tiresome, confusing, incoherent, disjointed. Because these two things, opinion and relation, did completely different things and had nothing to do with one another. So, yeah, fundamentally, I do think actually that relation slightly increased how quickly you could increase the opinion of a country of you, but it really was, it didn't matter. Let's just phrase it like this. So I personally find this to be a very positive change. Now, all of these have an impact on the AI's decision-making in terms of which diplomatic proposals it will accept, which side it will want to join in diplomatic plays, and so on. But besides that, there are also limitations on what actions you can take against another country based on your mutual relations. So basically, they are saying there will be restrictions. If you have a very good relationship with somebody, you can't just declare war against them. It doesn't make any sense, because your government, your country, and their government and country view each other positively. Now, if you were to worsen that relationship, obviously you could start doing things, but fundamentally, this is significantly better and more coherent, in my opinion, than what we had in Victoria 2. I'm very excited for this one, I will tell you outright. For example, a relations level of cordial or above acts as a non-aggression pact. It isn't possible to start most diplomatic plays against the country with which you have that relation level without first acting to reduce said relations. On the flip side, signing and maintaining a customs union with a country requires you to be at or above cordial relations, and there are other actions that cannot be taken unless relations are at other certain negative or positive thresholds. This, frankly, makes a lot of sense. If you want to form a customs union with somebody that isn't your vassal, you have to convince them. You have to bring them into a cordial position. This will also make it so, and this is very, very positive for me, because it should make single player basically much more fun. it should make it so that you're looking at a country's relationship with yourself, and that country can now evaluate what you can do and what you might want to do. For example, if you have a positive relationship, then yes, first and foremost, the AI will recognize they can't declare war against me. It's all good. I don't need to have my troops there. I don't need to plan against them, and so on and so forth. But if at any point you start to, you know, damage the relations between them and you, the AI basically gets a warning that says, hey, this player will try to screw with you. You need to be prepared. You need to check something, you know, whatever you can to make this war that potentially might be coming a success. And I think that is a good step. It also, of course, matters for multiplayer purposes, where you actually need to maintain a relationship with a country other than just being like, hey, behind your back, you know? Nobody knows Prussia and Japan are best friends, but let's just do it. Can't do that anymore. You need good relationships to actually do something. I think this is a good step all around in single player and in multiplayer. Now, how do you raise and lower relations? The primary way is through the improve relations and damage relations ongoing diplomatic action. More on those next week, but there's many other ways in which relations can be increased or decreased, including various events, diplomatic incidents, see the section of infamy below, and the expel diplomats' diplomatic actions, which we will also go over in detail next week, which is a way in which one country can act to prevent another country from cozying up to them relations-wise, though at the cost of gaining infamy. Now, if you played Victoria 2, then you will know expel diplomats. You will know basically stopping other countries from liking you, and you will know increase relations or increase opinion. Now it is only improve and damage relations, but it's the same thing, and basically expelling diplomats, of course, I assume that's the same thing. You will no longer be able to increase relations, making it so that you're in a position where, well, you know, you can't actually add a country into your sphere of influence and into your sphere of being liked. So yeah, basically, as I said earlier, they merged these two systems, and I basically think it's for the better. Now, what do we have here? We're looking at France. France has very bad relationships with Great Britain, pretty bad relationships with everybody else, except these minors all around, right? Good relationships with Sardinia-Piedmont, which is of course historical, and then good relationships with Austria. However, relations between France and Austria are cordial, +4. Ongoing efforts to damage relations are at 91% progress, +1% per day, and will result in mutual relations changing by -1 on the 10th of September 1837. Damage relations, +1% progress from Austria each day towards decreasing relations. Basically, Austria created a diplomatic envoy here that makes it so that the relationship will deteriorate. It will go down, it will grow a bit colder, and so on. These efforts can damage relations by up to -5. I read that and said, hey, -5 on a scale between +100 and -100 seems very low. But honestly, balancing is something that I'm not very concerned with right now. I think that they have to do this as they go and as they explore these mechanics. Either way, clearly Austria is trying to worsen relationships with France, mainly because France is cozying up to Sardinia-Piedmont, and then Austria, of course, would like supremacy over the rest of North Italy as well. What is quite interesting to me, actually, I just looked it over, is that it reads cordial +4, right? But we learned earlier that cordial is between 20 and 49 opinion. I have to assume that +4, so cordial is 20, and then +4 might mean 24 in total relations. But honestly, I'm not entirely certain about the UI there. Right, you see that as well, cordial +4? I would assume, yeah, I would assume that it basically means cordial has this base value of 20 and then +4, or it means something else. Honestly, I'm not entirely certain. That is something that isn't explained in this dev diary, and honestly, fair enough. It is what it is, right? Oh yeah, look at that, the French colonies in Algeria right there. Honestly, this map is nice, except for this stuff. So, again, I want to point this out. These were states in Victoria 2 as well. This was one state. This was just Saxony. This was Hesse, or Hesse-Nassau. I can't actually remember what exactly it was called. So, they didn't really lose any granularity there, but certainly the small princedoms here, the Thuringian princedoms, no longer exist. Not sure how to feel about it. Nobody played those. They're not viable. They don't do anything, but it just looks nicer, right? It just looks nicer with them actually on the map, with that sort of granularity right there. Either way, let's move on. This covers relations. Let's do infamy. This is a system. Aggressive expansion in Europa Universalis, but it is actually something that we have since redesigned following tester feedback, as the very localized effects of threat and aggressive expansion did not feel appropriate to the far more globalized Victorian era. The result is something that could be described as a hybrid between older infamy, or bad boy, systems and the newer, more localized systems. This is a big topic. Threat, on a basic level, basically stated, if you are active somewhere, And if you are active there and somebody else has interests and you do something against their interests, this will harm your relationship. That is what threat looked like, right? It looked like a direct, basically, impact of -X to your opinion between you and them. No longer the case. Or, well, relation, I should say. No longer the case, now it is infamy. And infamy does come with a double-prong attack. It comes basically in on a global and a local level. We're going to see that in a second. The result is something that could be described as a hybrid. Oh, we already did that. In Victoria 3, a country has an infamy value that starts at 0 and can increase to, well, anything, as there's no upper cap on it. As a country's infamy increases, other countries will become more wary, resulting in various diplomatic penalties for the infamous country. If infamy exceeds the pariah threshold, which is currently set to 100, in Victoria 2 it was 25, the country becomes a potential target for a special contained threat diplomatic play, where the great powers step in to restore order. Infamy decays slowly over time, and its rate of decay can be increased if the country has a large amount of unallocated influence capacity, representing that capacity being put to use, trying to salvage the country's global reputation instead. So, to sum it up, infamy is a value that you accrue by doing aggressive things, by causing diplomatic incidents, by, upending basically the old order. This makes sense. And this is so good so far. Let's take a look at the screenshot, because we're going to get to the local reputation that is also intertwined with infamy in a second. This is an interesting screen. First of all, I'm a big fan of all these map modes. I think show attitude, show relation, show infamy, I think that is nice. Maybe, if they're only here, I don't know whether I would be happy. I would rather have them as individual map modes as well, but let's put that aside for the moment. You can see the infamy is infamous. They have 33. It decays by -0.12 per week, and the base decay is -5 per year, plus 25% from diplomatic mitigation. I assume that basically that means that with their capacity, they went out of their way to say, hey, we're not that evil. We may be Bolivia. Looking around, I'm not sure. I don't think did they conquer this? Does Brazil go to, like, here? I don't know. But I will tell you, basically, they're trying to mitigate this. What is interesting here, and what is very, very important to me, actually, is this one right here. You have attitude and relations, and I really like this. So, the relationship between you and Bolivia, whoever we are, do they say who we are in the screenshot? They do not. Whoever we are, Bolivia and we are basically, we have cold relations. We don't really like one another, but what we can see, and this is really nice, both for AI and the player, is this attitude. The attitude says antagonistic. They very, very clearly are looking at a situation, and we might just be France, by the way. I think we're still looking at France, right? Because they are red. That sounds sensible. Either way, what I really like is the fact that you can see, yes, currently we are cold, but they are antagonistic. They want these relations to be even worse. I like this a lot. This really makes it so that you can see the long-term plan of an AI and of a different player. If they start damaging your relations, I assume it will also say antagonistic, because they are trying to antagonize you. I like that a lot. You can also see improved relations. Now, what I'm not sure about here is, I think that this means this is incoming, because the arrow goes towards it. Actually, now I'm not sure. No, I would say this is incoming. Could also be outcoming. It's a difficult one to say. Basically, this is New Granada, right? No, this is Venezuela, my bad. And the Dutch, they are basically saying we want to improve relations. Then we have a puppet here that is completely unknown to me. If you know this flag, do let me know. And then we have a rivalry that appears to be outgoing towards France. We don't like France, we're Bolivia, and clearly, as you can see, antagonistic. So there you go. I like this. This really goes quite far when it comes to showing you how somebody feels and how they want to feel in the future going forward. And then this one again, ooh, rivalries? Interesting. Actual rivalries forming, huh? I wonder how that behaves, but I'm very looking forward to the dev diaries that cover that, of course. Now let's move on. The key difference between Victoria 3 and its predecessor here is the diplomatic incident mechanic tied to infamy. In the vast majority of cases, any action a country takes, for example demanding land in a diplomatic play or violating a neutral country's sovereignty during war. Yo, does that mean you don't have to declare war to march into Belgium? You can just sort of do it? Oh, that's actually cool. That increases infamy will also create a diplomatic incident localized at a particular strategic region. More on that below on the map. For example, starting a diplomatic play to demand a colony in West Africa will result in a diplomatic incident occurring there. Whenever a diplomatic incident happens, the country that caused it immediately suffers a penalty to their relations with all countries that have an interest in the region, with the amount of relations lost based on the amount of infamy attached to the incident in question. Infamy in itself should be understood as a measure of how concerned the great powers are about a country, and as such, a country rank has an effect on